3 weekends remaining in the Sun Belt regular season baseball schedule. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. I'm Dave Schultz. Again, continued thanks for all the support. We had a record-setting month. Absolutely love it. Again, during football season, one thing. During baseball season is another. I don't think it's any coincidence that the two biggest months are probably due to Charles Huff. It is what it is. All right, we'll go beyond the top of the standings because there's more. In fact, probably a better chance for the bottom of the standings and the middle of the standings to change than the top of the standings. All right. So we have 3 weekends remaining in the Sun Belt Conference. And at the top of the standings is Coastal Carolina. They actually have a 2-game lead over Southern Miss and a 3-game lead over Troy. Okay. Coastal Carolina, they are hosting App State, who just got swept by, I believe, Southern Miss, right? In lovely Boone, North Carolina. Now, App State is going to Coastal Carolina. That's this weekend. All right. Next weekend, ULM is coming across the conference to play Coastal Carolina at home. All right. And then to wrap up the season, Coastal Carolina is going to Old Dominion. Okay. So if we check out the standings, they're playing App State, who's had not a bad season, not necessarily a great one, but they are sitting there tied for 5th. They're 11-10 in the conference, but due to their current 6-game losing streak, are 21-23. All right. Then you get ULM. They're 7-14 in conference play, and they're 21-24, very similar to App State. And then there's Old Dominion, who's got an odd deal going on. They're 10-11, and very much so looking to get into the tournament. They would be 9th. No, let's see here. 4, tied for 5th. Old Dominion is 8th. But they only have 15 wins. It's crazy. They are 15-25. So, unless Troy or Southern Miss is going to sweep the rest of the way, I'm hard pressed to see Coastal is going to lose more than 3 ball games. And that's presuming Southern Miss sweeps or Troy sweeps, right? Even if Troy sweeps, they actually took 2 out of 3 from Coastal, didn't they? So they would finish in a tie, and then Troy wouldn't be regular season champs if we'd been all over that, right? They'd be the number 1 seed, though. Okay. Not starting that ridiculous conversation again. And Southern Miss is, 2 games behind. Southern Miss, remember, Troy and Southern Miss wrap up with each other. Southern Miss this week, they're getting Arkansas State and they're getting the Cajuns. So, and I was right, they did sweep App State last weekend in Boone. So Southern Miss gets 6 straight at home, and that is Arkansas State and the Cajuns. We'll see if the Cajuns are headed in the right direction. I'm not thoroughly convinced of that yet. Arkansas State's not going to be easy. Okay. At the same time, I didn't think App State was going to be easy, but it kind of was. Arkansas State's got one of the best, maybe the second best pitching staff in the conference, I believe, and a top 20 pitching staff in America. Southern Miss has got the bats, kind of more of a complete team with the bats and the pitching. And we'll see if Arkansas State can go in there and steal one, as they are one of the teams that we want to talk about going beyond the top of the standings. But dealing with the top of the standings, it would appear, things can change. But with 3 weekends left to go, it would appear that Coastal Carolina is heading to your number 1 seed. Okay. Last year's number 1 seed Cajuns, 2 and done. They ran out of gas. They spent all of their cachet, if you will, trying to win the regular season. That's what they did. The barge was exhausted. The closer was exhausted. The pitching was exhausted. And they just didn't show up. And the clutch base hitting that they had gotten for a good 2 months just did not happen. So just because you are the number 1 seed, the point is you're not guaranteed anything for that fact of the matter, right? In this case, though, if Coastal finishes this off with, winning 6 out of 9 isn't great, but if they win 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9, and they win the Sun Belt Conference tournament, they have a legit shot at being a national seed, right? We mentioned it in yesterday's episode. I believe they were 12th heading into all this. Let's see if it changed. It did not. They're still 12th. Okay. And then you have, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Tennessee is right there. UC Irvine, who ends up being one of the best teams in the nation. They weren't last year, but they are this year. They did a number on the Cajuns. And then Alabama is right behind Coastal Carolina and Oregon State. Remember, I think Troy is playing Alabama next week. So that'll be a big ball game, not only for Troy. They could certainly help their Sun Belt brethren by knocking Alabama back a little bit. But again, if Coastal Carolina finishes up strong, wins the regular season, wins the conference tournament, some teams are going to have to fall off a little bit. But, obviously, you would think they would be in, I wouldn't say, we'd have to see everybody else. But, they have 34 wins right now. Predicted results is 43-12. So that's before the conference tournament. So that's 9-1 to finish the season with one more midweek ball game. And if they tack on whatever it is, 3 or 4 more wins in the conference tournament, that means they're going to be like, let's say 47-12 without losing a ball game. That's going to be pretty impressive. 46-12, 47-12. They got a shot. They got a legit shot at being a national seed. And obviously, high tides lift all boats. So the better off Coastal is, that could help out Troy and Southern Miss. Now, a week ago, I got myself into trouble saying that Southern Miss was on the bubble at 44, or maybe they were 42 or 43. And they have promptly gone up to 31, I believe. That's where they were heading into yesterday's action. All right. And obviously, that's pretty good. Let's see if they're still there. All right. They are still at 31. Okay. And so obviously, second place in the Sun Belt, they are a solid. They were actually a number 2 seed in On3's projections, tournament bracketology projections. And so they're in good shape with that. However, be careful. Here's the problem when we're in the position that we're in. Lose one game to Arkansas State, where they're not so great RPI, and see where you fall to. Lose another ball game to the Cajuns and see where you fall to. All right. Obviously, you're not going to get hurt by losing a game or 2 to Troy. Losing all 3 is not going to be great. But you lose a couple of ball games to Arkansas State and Southern Miss, or Arkansas State and the Cajuns, you're going to find yourself right back on the bubble again, pending Troy. All right. I happen to think, top 50, 40 or 50, you're in bubble territory. All right. Others think differently. I would rather not want to sweat it out. To me, there's a huge difference between 38 and 42. Just me. All right. Last year, there was a big difference between JMU at 46 and College of Charleston at 47. JMU got in. College of Charleston did not. All right. And then you have Troy, who is 3 ball games out. And Troy, as we've discussed, has not lost a conference series all season. They haven't swept anybody, and they are sitting at 39. All right, they're 32-13. As we mentioned, they're 1 game behind Southern Miss, 3 games behind Coastal Carolina. They got that big win over Jacksonville State that moved them from bubble territory at 44 to probably at large berth at 39. All right. Troy this week, and the bonuses of this thing is they're on the road. So despite South Alabama being an RPI of 145, the wins on the road count more. Get a couple wins on the road, and they'll probably move up a couple spots, even if you don't sweep them. That's a huge difference between Troy or Arkansas State at Southern Miss, or Southern Miss hosting Arkansas State rather than the other way around. So Troy's got a shot to continue to solidify their spot in an at-large berth, lose to South Alabama, then you're going to be right back in that bubble territory. And that's where it gets tough. That's where we're sweating it out Sunday night into Monday without playing for a Sun Belt championship game. I would say that who's ever playing in a Sun Belt championship game, if it's one of those 3 teams or 2 of those 3 teams, Coastal, Southern Miss, and Troy, those 2 are going in regardless of how they finish, I would think, unless they bottom out. But I would tell you those 2 teams will end up in the NCAA tournament. All right, let's take a timeout. Like I mentioned, you need to go beyond the top of the standings because there's much more around than just that. All right? Much more than meets the eye, I guess you want to say. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about that right after I tell you about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code S-H-5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. So we started out with the top of the standings, and now we're going to go look beyond the top of the standings. And the first team in there is the Cajuns, your defending regular season champions. They are 5 games out between Coastal Carolina and the Cajuns. Coastal Carolina is 17-4. Cajuns are 12-9. I mean, I don't think it's very realistic that Southern Miss can finish in first. There's a chance, but I don't think that's very realistic. I don't think there's a chance that the Cajun games. 5 games behind. I think that's too tough at all to ask. At the same time, that they are well aware, Matt Diggs, even a couple weeks ago, said if they can finish winning 6 ball games, they think they'll be in a top 6 spot. And that's what they are looking at right now. They are 4th, all right? They are at Georgia State, and we'll get to them here momentarily. Then they go to Hattiesburg, which we discussed. And then I normally say ULM, but I know they already played them. They get Arkansas State at home, and that is going to be huge. You can see that series very well may be for a top 6 seed and a bye, depending on what happens, well, in the next 2 weekends. But Arkansas State playing Southern Miss, and then the Cajuns playing Southern Miss. it'll be interesting to see where those two teams are at that point in time. As I mentioned, Arkansas State is tied with App State in the Sun Belt for 5th. All right. So if the season ended that way, both those teams would get they would not have to play in the first round, right? On that Tuesday, I think. So one team is heading the right direction. They've won 5 in a row. That's Arkansas State. On the other hand, App State has lost 6 in a row. All right. And I think my guy, Scott Watkins, who covers Southern Miss, talking about Arkansas State. Let me get to the Twitter. I think he said they have not been in the tournament. If you can imagine this. Since 2018. Is that right? Here you go. Arkansas State has not made the top 10 team format since 2018. The Red Wolves are in a position to end that drought, but are in Hattiesburg this weekend to play a team they are 0-12 against. Not great. All right. That's a long time ago for Arkansas State, and that tells you how great a job Mike Silva has done in less than a season. All right. He has them challenging, and we've seen this coming around. This is not me coming on Arkansas State Johnny come lately. We think they're going to beat a team or maybe two and be a thorn in their side. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Arkansas State's going to play in the championship or going to win the thing. I mean, I guess they could. Again, I'm still standing by my. It's not going out on much of a limb. I think Coastal, Troy, or Southern Miss are going to. Those are the 3 best teams, and those are the teams that I think are going to compete for the Sun Belt Championship. I'd be shocked if it's somebody else. Would not be shocked if Arkansas State beats one of them somewhere along the way. Would not be shocked if Arkansas State takes down the Cajuns. I wouldn't be shocked at any of that. All right. They're going to beat a team that nobody thinks they can beat. That's what I think. It may not be twice, but it probably will be a once. All right. So that's big time for Arkansas State. You have App State, and we don't know if they're just reeling or they just went into the Southern Miss series, maybe still licking their wounds, right? They have really not recovered at all since not sweeping JMU. They lost to JMU. They lost to East Tennessee State. And then they got swept by Southern Miss, and they lost 3-2 to Wake Forest. All right. Now they got to go to Coastal. They got to go to South Alabama, and they got to go to Georgia State. All right. Can they win 5 ball games? Can they go 5-4? That's taking 2 out of 3 from South Alabama and Georgia State and not getting swept by Coastal. All of a sudden, you get swept by Coastal. That's 9 in a row. And you're officially reeling. So that's going to be a problem for App State. All right. Because Georgia State is also looking to get in on this, right? So we said Arkansas and App State are they're tied for 5th. So Georgia Southern is 7th. In fact, Georgia Southern and Old Dominion are technically tied for 7th. Georgia State is 8th. I'm rephrase that, 9th. Marshall is 10th. Texas State 11th. ULM and South Alabama are 12th. And James Madison is 14th. Okay. ULM and South Alabama are 2 games out of making it into the tournament at all. Georgia State is a grand total of 2 games out of getting a first-round bye. That's how close it is. All right. And they may be closer because we'll see what happens to Arkansas State and App State if they fall. All right. That's going to be crazy. So there's not just the top of the standings. You have teams fighting for that bye. You don't want to play in the one and done portion of the tournament. You want to be in the double elimination portion of the tournament. And the other teams fighting 7, 8, 9, 10, they'll take the top 10 portion. They'll be in the single elimination portion just to get in there. Be huge for somebody like Arkansas State to get a first round bye. Double elimination. Mike Silva doing a great job. They would obviously be playing. I mean, Well, I don't know who they'd be playing. I guess they'd be playing the bottom of the schedule. The top of the schedule probably gets a double bye. So we'll have to check out those brackets here momentarily, or maybe at a different episode. Otherwise, I think they're playing a 2 seed, and that's probably not the way that it's going. All right. So we'll see. All right. Let's take a time out. We'll continue with the weekend preview. All right. Right after I thank everybody once again. Almost 33,000 views. All right. Typical month might be 15,000. All right. I would tell you my second best month was the last 2 weeks of April. All right. Got like 24,000 views. You guys are great. Really appreciate it. I obviously have struck a nerve a little bit with Southern Miss being on the bubble and that whole Marshall, Southern Miss, Charles Huff thing. They're still going at it. Southern Miss put out a tweet with Michael Green in a Ravens uniform and Charles Huff as a Southern Miss coach. That triggered Marshall fans, which, if you're at Southern Miss, is a bonus. Knowing that they're just trying to promote their head coach, but knowing that Marshall would take offense, fully knowing that's what they did. So that's, I guess, a good use of social media. If we'll promote our guy, and at the same time, we'll get others to promote it with us because we know they're going to do something with what we post. So I appreciate everybody. Looking forward to what should be a tremendous end of the season in baseball. All right. And again, we have at least Tim Beck is going to join us, we believe, next week. Head coach of Coastal Carolina football. That would make 8 out of the 14. Not bad. All right. We'll see if we can get the rest on here over the next couple of weeks as well. All right. Let's get back to it. Let's wrap it up as we continue to preview this weekend's baseball action. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, so let's go back and see who is playing who. Let's do it so we both can look at that. All right. I can look at the standings and the schedule at the same time. So we went over Arkansas State, Georgia State. All right. They're getting the Cajuns. App State's getting Coastal Carolina. All right. James Madison is at Georgia Southern. Okay. So that's a little sneaky series in there for Georgia Southern, right? Georgia Southern is sitting there tied for 7th with ODU. All right. Now, if we're being fair, and they are just one game behind Arkansas State and App State, and Georgia Southern is hosting JMU. At the very least, if you're Georgia Southern, you're looking for 2 out of 3, if not a sweep. You avoided the sweep last week against the Cajuns. You have a chance to do some damage against a team that is just flat out struggling this year after making the NCAA tournament last season. So if Georgia Southern sweeps JMU, it's a lot to ask. All right, it's happened once when I predicted it. It didn't happen another time. Georgia Southern would be 13-11. What's Arkansas State going to do against Southern Miss, and what's App State going to do against Coastal? What an opportunity for Georgia Southern to pop up to 5th. Maybe Georgia State does a solid and takes 2 out of 3 from the Cajuns. We'll see. Then all of a sudden, you'd be tied for 4th. The Cajuns would have 2 more losses, and if you sweep, you'll both be 13-11. That would be amazing. All right. So Georgia Southern sitting there tied for 7th. They could very easily get into the top 6. All right. Old Dominion the same way, except we're not sure if Old Dominion, we don't think Old Dominion is very good at all. That's the problem. They have this crazy RPI. They've only won 15 ball games. That is less than South Alabama, who's 7-14 in conference play. And it's only 2 more than James Madison, who's got awful at 13-32. By the way, JMU has lost 5 in a row. All right. The other team we need to look out for, and they had a huge win a couple of nights ago against West Virginia. All of a sudden, here comes the Marshall Thundering Herd, winners of 6 in a row. Marshall is sitting there. They are 10th. Well, actually, they are tied for, what do we say here? Tied for 9th, technically. Georgia State, Marshall, and Texas State all are 9 and 12. Okay. So what can the Cajuns do to help out Marshall with Georgia State? And speaking of that, who does Marshall have? Marshall's got Old Dominion. So that is big right there, chasing the team that's right in front of them. They're looking to solidify themselves into the top 10. Got to believe it's a very outside shot they get in the top 6. I mean, it's not ridiculous. They're 2 games behind Arkansas State and App State and 1 game behind Georgia Southern. So technically, they have a shot. They're at Old Dominion. Can they take 2 out of 3, and can they sweep? I mean, if Georgia Southern sweeps and Marshall sweeps, the Cajuns take 2 out of 3. Arkansas State and App State lose at least 2 out of 3 or get swept. I mean, it's going to flip. The whole standings are going to flip right behind the top 3 teams. All right. You do have Texas State. Again, they are tied with Marshall and Georgia State. Texas State's getting ULM. That's an opportunity, one would think. At the same time, is it an opportunity for ULM? All right. And then, when we say South Alabama, isn't South Alabama hosting this week? South Alabama is hosting Troy. So, I mean, a big spot for South Alabama. Can they win 2 out of 3 to get themselves into the Sun Belt Conference tournament? All right. And then JMU is on life support. They've lost, what did we say, 6 in a row? 5 in a row. And it's just been a bad season for JMU. They're so good at everything else. Football, had a great season in basketball. Just not very good. And they're good in women's basketball, not very good in baseball this year. They were last year, but not very good this year. All right. So we will see what happens. Really looking forward to it. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to watch. I am working all weekend, and it is a big weekend. It is Derby weekend. So it is going to be a lot of fun this weekend. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll have a full recap on Monday, off on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll still have a podcast, but I'm around. We'll see if we can get another, a few more coaches to hop in. I think they're getting sick and tired of me asking, but do you say no? I mean, I can take being ignored. I won't be ignored, Dan. But I followed up, and someone got back to me. All right. And Coastal Carolina seems to be lined up for next week. So really do appreciate all of the SIDs and communication people helping me out, getting their coaches on the podcast. For the most part, I think all the coaches enjoy it, right? Try to make them laugh, have a good time, show them the bourbon collection, right? It's all that. Please have a safe and fun weekend. All right. And we'll be back with you again on Monday. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great one, everybody.